this in, but all right, everybody. Hey, welcome to Crossroads Church Facebook. My name is Chris Comstock. I have the honor of serving as one of the pastors here at Crossroads Church. I'm excited to be able to moderate a conversation tonight about the importance and significance around Black History Month. Just in case you didn't know, Black History Month celebrates really African Americans' history, their contributions, their achievements. It started back in 1926. Carter Woodson started kind of what he called Negro History Week. It was a week that highlighted the history and the lives and the contributions of African Americans. And then finally, and I'm kind of skipping a few years ahead, but after a lot of fighting and protesting and really fighting for the right to be heard and remembered and to have a month that celebrates the history and the culture of the African American. In 1976, they finally were able to take it from Negro History Week to a month-long celebration that we observe and honor today. And if we are honest, African American history embraces over 400 years of living in America. It includes the stories and activism against slavery and even modern day racism. It happens in February for a good reason. Two key figures Woodson realized had birthdays in February. One, Frederick Douglass, who has an interesting story. I don't know if you guys know as to why he picked February 14th as his birthday. We can talk about that if you want to. But Frederick Douglass on February 14th and Abraham Lincoln on the 12th of February both celebrate birthdays in February. Obviously, Lincoln known for issuing the Emancipation Proclamation, thereby ending slavery as we know it. And Douglass escaped from American slavery in 1838 and became a renowned abolitionist and speaker and writer. Black History Month is also a time to recognize the African Americans who contributed to the growth and change in the United States. It celebrates the accomplishments of people like Onesimus, who was an enslaved African who actually brought vaccines to America, and Hiram Rhodes Revels, the first African American ever to be elected to the U.S. Senate. Black History Month is a time to recognize the contributions of African Americans to the history of the United States and the world. We had to remember that many American institutions were founded and built by African American workers who were enslaved and who really, until recently, received no recognition for their work or ideas. And that's why it's important for us to recognize these historical figures during Black History Month, so they're honored properly. So Black History Month encourages us to have an important conversation about race in the U.S. and around the world. February usually comes and goes with maybe a few mentions about Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks in schools, but along with maybe some modern day African American leaders like a Barack Obama or many others. But really, Black History Month is the perfect opportunity to highlight African American leaders, activists, change makers, who, while facing remarkable oppression, were also able to shine a remarkable light and really overcome that oppression and racism that they faced. Booker T. Washington said it this way, that success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which were overcome while trying to succeed. So with that in mind, I want to introduce a couple of my friends tonight. Pastor Trey Reeves at Crossroads Church works alongside of me, an incredible man, as well as one of our elders at the church, Mr. Robert Palmer, and his wife, who's also on our staff, Miss Gwen Palmer. I want to welcome you guys tonight. Thank y'all for taking some time this evening to specifically, as I shared with you guys before we hopped on, specifically talk about what Black History Month means to you. And for me, an opportunity to learn, to grow, and hopefully to sit at y'all's feet tonight for just a few moments of time. So whoever wants to start, we don't really have an order in line tonight, but I would love for all three of you to share what does Black History Month mean to you? What is the significance or importance of it to y'all?
Well, I'm sorry, my voice is a little bad. I have laryngitis. But when we were growing up, it was always a month that we would concentrate on learning more about African American history and not
Mm.
just the regular stuff that was in the books. So that always made it feel, I felt a little special in that we could learn about more about people of color. And I've just always felt it was very important to know more and to learn more.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and for me, it was that jump start, just to crave it and look at it, just take it from just that month where we just highlighting. And it's great to highlight the importance of how African Americans have really helped shape America and even in the world, right? So I just remember that when the movie Hidden Figures came out, that was something that we were never taught. We was always taught, about Martin Luther King, Booker T. Washington, Rosa Parks, your prolific figures that you always hear about. But to watch that movie Hidden Figures, on how much that these four ladies and what their contributions to NASA and into what they did with putting a man on the moon, really did. That really just sparked how much genius is just really out there. And so, kind of upset you a little bit that was hidden, but then on the other side, you're also happy that it's come to the forefront. And that's thing. Those are the things that kind of like with the Black History Community, what more is out there that we can learn about, and who's out there today is pioneering um, great strides in America today for African Americans.
I love that.
Yeah, and the African American contribution to our country, and what makes America what it is so foundational.
Mm.
Uh, it is great to take that time to just stop and think and give consideration to the nature of the contribution of African Americans as a people to this country. When you look across the spectrum, I mean, from inventions, things that we use every day. You look at elevators. You look at, uh,
Stoplights.
every time you
Mm.
go give blood to the Red Cross. African Americans were instrumental in those processes, and
Mm.
just building the foundation of this country. Uh, you know, African Americans were a tremendous part of that, and it's great that we take the time to go back. And February can be a foundation for that celebration, but
Mm.
it's really something that can carry on, I think, throughout the year.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Why do you think that it's so important for us to celebrate during this month? What are some benefits to really taking time to learn about these things that you're talking about? I mean, the elevators and the Red Cross, and even as I mentioned before, some of the ones prior to, like Onesimus or Booker T. Washington. You pick, like, why do you feel like it's so valuable? What is so important in this month to learn and to grow?
Well, first of all, we continue to pass it down to our children and
Yeah.
grandchildren because we want them to continue to learn and and remember it and honor it. So I think by doing that, we're passing it on, passing it down, and expanding their knowledge. But um, it's very, very important to keep it going, to keep it going, to
Yeah.
not let this disappear, to not uh, whitewash Black history. It's very important. So that's why I like to celebrate and honor it.
Yeah, it's good.
And again, it's so instrumental to America's history as a whole, and I think it's instrumental to us as Christians because it provides an opportunity for people who don't look like us to see
Right.
us, for in the light of the things that we have done and continue to do for this country, and I think it dispels misconceptions that people might have about someone just
Based on
because
their
of
skin.
based on what they look like. So I
Yeah.
think it's educational, and I think it's a door opener, and it's a conversation. It's an opportunity for folks to have conversations that perhaps they may not be so comfortable having. Um, if it weren't for the fact that we were celebrating Black History Month.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, and then too, it's like, if you really want to look at it, if you take the contributions that African Americans have, like for example, Louis Lattimore, where he kind of really took that carbon filament. It was the way he didn't invent the light bulb, but he invented the carbon filament so that the light bulb could work and have a priority in American society. Now, it's unfortunate that at that time that African Americans were not allowed to patent, so that's why Edison got the credit. But in the reality of it is, those are the kind of things that has happened because during those times, a lot of African Americans in the 1800s and early 1900s didn't have much of a say, and and it's sad that they didn't. But however, the contributions that was there, like the slaves made the cotton gin, and Eli Whitney got the credit for it because then African Americans were not hated. So a lot of things that our society has that has come about has come through African American hands, but however, that was stripped away from them, their notoriety for it, because of they wasn't considered citizens of the United States. And so fast forward to now, I think that a lot of kids really need to understand where they come from and what we have done. And I think that would have proliferated, like to say that might change their mindset of what's going on. And also would change the mindset of, anybody else as well. And so going back to what we were saying and what Robert was saying, is like, it's just that jump start just for focusing on highlighting February, but this is something that we can be carried on throughout the whole year. And I think if people understood where they come from and understood their history and have a background and knowing who they are, and they will think of themselves better. And on top of that, really, we're all we're all God's children. And I think that's from a Christian perspective, that's what we should be focusing on and pushing anyway. Who are we in Christ?
Yeah, that's good. There's a great somebody dropped a comment, and I want to show it to y'all. So it says so thanks for commenting. Y'all are welcome to comment all night long. It's an open conversation. But it just says it's important to our prize people, but also for those who want to keep distributing negative stereotypes. And I'll be honest, I think this for me is where this month matters so much. And not just this month, because I think you guys are right. Like you guys remember, I did a podcast for a long time called Back Porch Conversations, and there's been a lot of calls to bring it back. I haven't started back yet, but I probably should. But in that, we just had conversations because for me, it was more an opportunity to sit in humility and learn. And I think sometimes, if we're honest, we allow, and when I say we, let me define. Me as a Caucasian male, allow my pride to get in the way of humility. And instead of sitting and going, hey, I would love to learn, I go, well, hey, just learn my stuff, learn my ways, learn my history, and I think at the end of it all, this month in particular drives us to a spotlight to go, hey, it's an opportunity for us to sit with one another and just let me feed from you. Like, hey, tell me who's significant to you. Tell me who matters. Tell me what I don't know that I should know. And sometimes when we're just willing to sit and listen, you would be shocked at the ability that we have to love one another well. And I think sometimes that the love and the tensions that we're feeling in this nation come at the hands of pride, not at the hands of humility. And I would just love for more of these conversations to happen where we're just going, hey, why does it? Because maybe you don't know. And maybe you sit there behind a screen and go, well, I don't know why this is so important. Can I just encourage you tonight to stop asking that question and to just ask the question to somebody who it does matter to, hey, why is this important to you? Help me understand so that I can grow as an individual, as a human being, so that I can better love people who maybe, Robert, like you said, don't look like me. Remember this, I don't remember who's, somebody said, I know, who don't look like me, so that I can better be a more well-rounded individual. So here's what I want to know, because this, again, like I told you guys, is an opportunity for me to grow. What does celebrating Black History Month look like for you guys, or what has it looked like in the past? I know, Gwen, your daughter teaches at our school. And I know they decorated the door, and we have a very diverse school. And so I'm excited that we get to kind of, at a young age, begin this process of going ahead. And she asked, and yeah, please. You know what I mean? So it wasn't even a thought in my brain. And so I just wonder, what is celebrating that this month look like? How do we do that well so that we can best honor kind of the people who have gone before us?
Well, in my previous job, I worked at a middle school, and I worked in the office, and for the longest time, we didn't do anything to celebrate it as a school. If any teacher wanted to do it, that was fine. But I pulled together. I would do a question every morning, and I got prizes donated. So I would you'd listen to the question, you get the answer, and you come down. And so I would do a trivia contest. And then my last few years, we did a door decorating contest, and
Wow.
that was great because it got the children involved. They learned about different figures that they maybe did not know about, and I tried to encourage them to not do Martin Luther King, Sojourner Truth, the ones you hear all the time, because their Black history is vast. So
Yeah.
I would try to encourage them. That was one of the qualifications in the contest. If your person was not one of the standard run-of-the-mill people that you know about so much, if you got somebody different, then that was you got more points from that. So
I
and
love
then
that.
when our kids were growing up, we live near Atlanta. The Black Mecca is what it's called, and it's so much history here, so much African American history here. So we would go down to Atlanta often, certainly during Black History Month, and because we wanted our girls to be aware, to know their history, and to know about people in our past who have done wonderful things, great things, brave people like Martin Luther King. Boy, he was a brave person. So I wanted them to know all that, and that was very important for us as they were growing up.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Can I ask, was that something, anything that I've read in my research is that that it wasn't always passed down generationally, that this is kind of a newer, I don't know how to describe it, but maybe you guys do better, but what led to that transition, that shift of going, hey, we're really gonna talk about it, we're really gonna kind of bring it? Was it when Woodson started it in 1926? Like, was that kind of the shift where it kind of became acceptable? I'm trying to choose my words very carefully here, but where it became kind of acceptable to have those conversations? Did I don't know, did you guys see that generationally in your families, where maybe grandma didn't talk about it, but mom did? Or how did that transpire? Do y'all remember that?
Yeah, I think for in my family, the conversations really proliferated. We were, I was, relatively young, kind of growing up during that, during the '60s, when a lot of the activity was going on regarding civil rights, and we actually lived it. So I think for us, it was something that was part of our upbringing, and we were, and we certainly shared it with our children. But I was having conversations with my older brothers and my older cousins, because they were participating. In '69, there was a big march at the high school where they all attended because of some things happening in our community. So they were active participants, and I got to have firsthand conversations with them during the time when the events were actually happening, that kind of have taken us to where we are today. And the thing that I try to share, being in a school environment as well, is it continues. It's not that a bunch of years ago a lot of folks did some stuff, which obviously you can't underestimate the significance of that. But the fact of the matter is, it does continue. There are still people across the spectrum, and especially African Americans in this vein, that are doing wonderful things to further this place that we call home here in the United States. So the lesson is not just that it's something from the past, but that it is continuing and it continues today.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I love we have one person who's commenting a bunch, and I love it. So I don't want to screw up her name. I believe it's Kasia. I could be wrong. If so, please forgive me. But she wrote, I think this is an important point here. Maybe it's Cassia. But the onset of the internet, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that when social media, really the internet became more global. I am in the generation where the internet was not around and then was around, more globally, internationally. And that has brought about, obviously, we've seen things come to the forefront, whether that be inappropriate actions by, police officers, things like that along the way, all the way to being able to share at a higher volume. Think about how much content we have at our fingertips that you would have to go read an encyclopedia or believe it or not, I don't know if the kids know what these are, books. But at the end of the day, it's become so prevalent now that I think it's a little bit easier to access. I think that has definitely helped in broadening, I know, all of our understandings of how impactful so many African Americans have been at building the foundations of this country. So with that in mind, I would love to kind of maybe hear what are some favorite historical figures who are, I know we've thrown out a few names already, so they can be those people too, that's fine. I know we've kind of got a few local heroes as well here in the Atlanta area, which is where we are, that we can mention. But for you guys growing up or as you become adults now and you're able to maybe even research a little bit more, who are some historical figures or present day figures who have really stood out to you that have impacted and shaped kind of who you are in this generation of learning and growing together?
First of all, I would have to say, I look at my parents who really pioneered a lot being entrepreneurs. Both my mom was a registered nurse. My dad, he was, in business and things like economics and teaching. But they started a company, Ditto Press, in probably 1980. And it was ran for like 20 years. It was $1 million business. So, and I watched what they did in the community. For a lot of the schools, they were school supplies and things like that. They ordered for especially Christian schools. They printed a lot of church pamphlets and things of that nature. And then for me, it just really watching them work and just carve out that, hey, with grit and work and, of course, God being first, it gave me a very great foundation that I can accomplish anything I put my heart and mind to it. And should nothing stop you, if there's people who just don't want to see you succeed, you don't have to focus on it. You just focus on God and watch what he do. And then, and understanding not everybody's against you, it takes for people to succeed, and it's going to be unity, and whether you're black or white, brown, yellow, red, it's all of us coming together and putting down with these social media or just media, what they put up in front of you. And I think, like Cassie said earlier, people spinning the negative side of it. That's what you see a lot on the news. It's the same negativity that they just post, but then there's other people and other hues of color of their skin doing the same stuff, but their stuff is just not put on blast or not put out there on the little laundry string and all that. And so, and they're not highlighted, and that's not fair. So, but we have to understand that you cannot judge, something before time. Or you can't just take bits and pieces of it and call that the truth because you're just looking at a snapshot in the film, right? So. And I think that we owe it to ourselves, and I was just talking to some friends of mine today, that where we have to really just get into there and go back and look at history. There's the Greensboro 4 at A&T, where they went and sat at the counter, and they really sat there and at Woolworth and just they were not going to leave until they got served. And then when other African American kids and even white kids, they all come together and they marched together because they knew what was fairness. And yes, well, there some people on the opposite side that was being staunch and just because of being pig-headed and bull-headed. Yes, there was. But eventually, but it took all those folks who just came up in there. And my dad told me about where A&T, one of the dorms was shot up with bullet holes because of the riots that was taking place. So he happened to be in part of that. And so those are some of the things that hey, I just look to for me. So I look at my parents as a way of helping me, and then of course just learning all about all the different people. So.
Yeah.
A modern day person who I am so impressed with is LeBron James. Don't follow his basketball career. I know he's wonderful. He's great. He just broke the scoring record. I follow that. But what he does in his private life, he is supporting so many kids to go to college. I think it's 100 kids. He's putting 100 kids through college. That is amazing, to give back to your community. And not be out there saying, hey, look what I'm doing, just to do it from the goodness of his heart, to know that this is how you help the next generation. You give them a leg up. If you have the means, you give them the leg up. So LeBron James is one of the people who I'm so impressed with.
I didn't even know about his school. I didn't even know about his school for probably a long time in his career, and then I feel like it kind of came out that he was doing. I mean, just unbelievable work that he's doing in Cleveland, nonetheless. Even though he left that city, and we won't talk. This is not a sports show, so we won't talk about the impact that had. But yeah, how incredible to use your wealth and your influence to make a massive difference. Sorry, Robert, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, for me, history has always appealed to me, and one of the historical figures for me is Ralph Bunche. Ralph Bunche was was the first African American to receive a PhD in political science. He really showed, though there were so many doubters, he really showed what African Americans could do on an international stage. When the country of Israel was established in 1948, they went to war with their neighbors immediately. And it was Ralph Bunche who was called upon after the person who went in before him was killed, actually, with that same mission. It was Ralph Bunche who was called upon to broker peace between Israel and the Arabs once the nation of Israel was established. And he was able to show, because, in 1949, that was not something that many people thought African Americans were capable of. And I think he kind of set the stage for a lot of the stuff that followed and the significant contributions that African Americans made in this country moving forward. But his work really appeals to me in that he did it on such a international scene and was the first African American to pick up the Nobel Peace Prize in the process. So Ralph Bunche really is one of my heroes.
I love that. As a baseball player, I can always give the easy Jackie Robinson because I love the movie that they did. There's great movies. If you guys aren't watching movies on a lot of these, like there's a great show on Amazon Prime called Underground. It tells the story of the Underground Railroad and people escaping and how laborious that was and how challenging it was, the fear that came over them so often. I did a paper in middle school, high school. I don't remember, one of those two, on Frederick Douglass and his work as an abolitionist, and specifically on his writings, which as a middle school, high school was very difficult to read, and so that was not very fun. But there were a ton. You can go on and on for days and days about the massive impact of so many who overcame, again, like we've talked about, kind of that oppressive nature, be it because of skin color or whatever it was that held them down, and how they've overcome. And that, to me, is worthy of us celebrating more than a month, as you said earlier. And so I would love to see us in our school systems become more, progressive might be the wrong word. I don't know what to use there, but where we are going, hey, let's celebrate the incredible impact. Trey, like you said earlier, I think so often we forget that many of the inventors and the guys who were building the foundations of our country were never given the credit they were deserved because it wasn't allowed or it wasn't approved by the whatever people in power at that time. And I just think about how ridiculous that is. For me, like my family has always been interracial. And so, not my parents, of course, as you can tell, I'm very white. But within my family dynamics, my immediate family, my aunts and uncles and cousins, I've never been around anything different. So when I moved to the South in 2004, I didn't know. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know the nature of how serious racism still was. In my mind, I was the naive. Racism doesn't exist anymore. That's gone, right? Because I've never experienced it. One, obviously because I'm white, but two, because the family that I was around always said it doesn't matter what you look like, just we love you, we want you in our family. Like there is no difference between us, and we want you. And so, of course, I was raised in the North, so moving to South Carolina was a shell-shocking moment for me of going, wait, why do we hate certain? I don't understand what is happening. And it really rocked me to my core. I did not enjoy or appreciate having to learn that at such an older age, I guess, if you will, at 17, 18 years old, going, well, I don't understand why there's such a disdain for somebody else right now, regardless of the color of skin. We just decided these people are not equal. They're not worth as much. They're not whatever. And as you look at American history, we wrote a document that said all men are created equal, comma, except for some. That's not in there, but it is, inferred, and it makes me sad. It makes me sad that was ever a cultural fit for us. It makes me sad that was ever appropriate. And unfortunately, if I can just be really transparent for a second, the church sat at the forefront often of justification of the sin. And it takes us as believers going, this is not appropriate, and it's not ever justified in Scripture. And I don't care who you are or what Bible you're using, it's never, ever one time justified that somebody is subservient to somebody else in that regard, in basic worth and value. And so I understand there's hierarchies in in the business world, whatever, but never because you look a certain way and I look a certain way should there ever be this that happens. So I wonder, or I want us to kind of maybe close out maybe a significant event that you can remember that has stood out to you in the course of your life. And it might be something personally that's happened or something that you've experienced or learned about. But has there been like a moment in time or an event that you've incurred here as an African American living in America that has changed or altered or has been impactful or that's inspired you to go, I'm never going to let that happen to my children, or whatever it might be? Is there an event that you might be able to recall as a monumental moment for you along the way?
Well, my one story in my almost 62 years of living that I have about racism against me, first of all, I'm going to say my sister is always telling me she's going to slap my rose-colored glasses off my face. I do live in a world that is filtered by my rose-colored glasses. I'm sure I've had plenty of issues, but I don't remember them. I don't pay any attention to them. So the one time I do remember, Robert was in the Air Force and we were going from Myrtle Beach to North Carolina, and we decided to take the back way, and we weren't doing the highways, and we needed to use the bathroom. So we stopped at this little gas station in this little town in South Carolina, and Robert went in to use the bathroom, and she said, "Oh, it's not working." So he came up, and as he was walking out the door, he heard the toilet flush. So she just didn't want him to use the bathroom. So that's my one against me that I remember. But we have so many friends from the Air Force in our lives who are all races, all nationalities. We have been so blessed, and our children have been so blessed in that we don't just live in this bubble with just African American friends and just African American family. Our children are so blessed in that they've been raised to love all colors, nationalities. So I take pride in that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
For me, I remember when I was in high school, I went to a pretty predominant white high school, Christian school. And in there, which you wouldn't think this would happen, but I had a letter on my locker saying, Trace, stop talking to the white girls in here or else, right? And so my friend, she took it out of my locker and she was upset and took it to the principal. I was so lost of words. I didn't know what to think. And then one of the guys was at my locker messing around, and I jacked him up and put him against the locker. And they had to pull me off of him. And the principal, what I can imagine, he's like, listen, whoever did this, step forward, because we don't play this here. We're all brothers and sisters in Christ. And this is not the way that we should treat one another. We're supposed to treat one another in love. And that played when the principal got up there and said that, it really did spoke volumes to me that not everybody's the same. You got knuckleheads out there. Hey, whatever. We're now in a time where it shouldn't happen, right? But and unfortunately it does. And I see it, and I see it even in business practices. And when I was in logistics and things like that, you see it there. It's prominent, and people hide it in different ways. And it's words they use that say, "Oh, you're articulate. Oh, you're this. Or you're that." But then they will never put you or give you promotions that you deserve and things of that nature. And it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, it does happen. But I cannot allow that to stop me from doing what God has called me to do. Where do my walks like? And I teach my children. I said, just people just going to be pig-headed. There's people on either side, right? Because unfortunately, there's the crab in the barrel syndrome. You try to move forward, and people are going to try to hold you back because they think you're better. But they're still listening to all the negativity that's out there and trying to keep you inside of a system that they don't want to get out of, and then other people want to strive to get out of it. So,
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I grew up in, I grew up in rural North Carolina, but our neighborhood was, I grew up with white kids and black kids, so I never really, I never really had, and we were just kids growing up together. It was a farm community, so everybody kind of needed everybody to make things happen.
Yeah.
I never really had an incident, a real racial incident, actually, until I went to visit. Actually, we were going to visit Gwen's brother in New Jersey, and we stopped in a town outside of his town. I'll never forget it. We kind of got turned around, so we had to go use a phone. And when I went into this restaurant and asked to use the phone, there was a phone inside, and the patron, the owner of the establishment, basically said, "No, you can't." This was before cell phones, obviously. He said, "No, you can't use my phone, but there's a payphone outside." And when I went out to use the payphone outside, some people, teenagers drove by in a car, and I think the comment they made was something like, "Hey, it's 5 o'clock. You shouldn't be here after 6." So that was, that was the one incident the major incident. I mean, there have been, slights obviously throughout, but that was the major incident that kind of really changed my perspective because like I said, where I grew up, I didn't experience that directly, but that was the first time it was so blatant and obvious that I had such a blatant and obvious experience.
Yeah. First of all,
Chris,
go ahead, Trey. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't like to always talk about, but Hollywood really, pushes a lot of stuff, right? Because I always ask myself, why can't African Americans have love stories and romances and stuff like that too? It's always, something something crazy or something out of their box or whatever. But you look at a lot of movies that are pushed through, Hollywood and things like that. So, but then of where people are shown to have be influential or fluent, but then you see movies that does depict black people. A lot of it is, they're struggling to get out, or there's people on top that's trying to keep people down, and why don't we have that balance of movies that kind of where folks can see, and then, or if they have to do an independent movie, they don't have the funding to do it, to have something that can go mainstream. So, and you have that, and that's what's being shown and things like that. That kind of helps develop the mind of where people are, pimps or drug addicts, or they just can't, or they just can't get out, like I said, and we need to see more of where people are being affluent, more people are having the living the dream, so to speak, and so that people can aspire, to move forward, but it still takes our community, it still takes us having a responsibility to push forward and to show these things and to say, hey, you can succeed. And pulling somebody aside who may not have somebody to speak into them, that when we do that, when we speak into them, I was like, if we have that ability to make sure that we can give somebody a helping hand, we do that. So.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I love the fact there's a lot more content, I think, being created now within Hollywood that I think is doing exactly what you're talking about through guys like Tyler Perry or Key and Peele. And there's some messed up movies coming out too that I love. Like you said, Get Out, and I immediately thought about that movie wrecked me for months. If you guys haven't seen that movie, it's terrifying. Anyways, yeah. So I want to end. I believe that the best way to combat ignorance is through education. And so tell me, other people listening, what are some ways that we can be educated? What are some films you've seen, or some things to research? What are some ways that we can help people grow in their knowledge and understanding of African American history?
Well, I think for me, I mean, there are just so many things that are available to us now, from museums. I mean, especially being here in the Metro Atlanta area. But what I would say the easiest thing to do is be purposeful about going out and meeting somebody, maybe your neighbor who doesn't, who you may not think that you have a lot of in common with, or, who's different than who you are, then just have a conversation. I mean, I think it starts there. I think we all grow when we are purposeful, and African Americans as well. Be purposeful about going out to meet somebody who doesn't look like you, and having a conversation, starting a conversation. I think there's so much. I think there's a wealth of knowledge that can be gained, and there's a ton of growth that can occur when you are purposeful about meeting somebody who's different than you.
Yeah, that's good.
I love reading biographies, so that's one of the best ways to educate yourself about someone else's life, and to know that we're all the same. We're all people. We're all humans. But I love reading biographies. I highly recommend that.
Yeah, you know who pioneered autobiographies, right? Do you know who pioneered the writing of autobiographies? No? Maya Angelou. She wrote 7 of them herself.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyways, sorry. Yeah, fun fact. I'm a book nerd, so if you start mentioning books, I'm gonna come out with some book facts. Yeah.
One of the things in the what I learned when I was in college is I took a African American history class, and the teacher there, she was really teaching us about back in the African culture they had griots, and they would be the ones who would learn all the history and pass it on down. They would pick somebody to teach, and I would say find an elderly statesperson that's that's been in the community for quite some time. A lot of them may not just talk, but if you ask them, they will just lay out a lot of history to you. Especially if they still live through this long and things of that nature. people will speak their mind. They just want somebody to know. They want their story to be told, the story to be heard. And I think that's the best way to do that. You know, what's sad is I think all people should know about all history. Period. I'm a history buff. Especially what happened in the Civil War and all that stuff, and beyond all that, just really learning and understanding why all these things happen. So, but I think you should just know, and I don't think that history should be whitewashed. I think everybody should know the history and know the travails of what people have gone through, so that you can have pride in, you know what, my people walked, well, they did this, and they overcame. So therefore, I'm standing on their shoulders, and we must move forward. And not only just move forward, people, but we all coming together, loving one another, because things that happened 400 years ago, Chris, I can't blame you for that. You wasn't there, but obviously there are people, like you said, that's come to the South where those stories have been passed down and those things have to be broken. Unfortunately, you're going to come across that. It's not going to be like an author who haven't heard this one that think that all people is involved because they haven't. But I look at the fact that when we become a new creature in Christ, our old ways are passed away. So therefore, we should be thinking as we are brothers and sisters in Christ, and let all that other stuff go away and having that mindset. But that does take a process, and that does take work, and that takes love and grace to handle that. And I know some people might not like what I have to say about that, but I want to make sure that that's the way we're operating, because we have to. And we have to say it. And we have to say it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
And forgiveness.
Yeah, love, grace, forgiveness, all those are displayed on both sides. I think you guys nailed it on the head. There's tons of great resources out there. I enjoy watching, but I saw 1619 Project was tossed in the chat. I haven't seen that yet, but I've heard really good things about it. I watched Them on Amazon Prime. If you haven't seen that yet, it's when they were beginning to move to Harlem. It's a really interesting. It's when the first Black couple moved to Harlem, and the pain and the torment that they experienced on the other side of that. Underground Railroad, like I mentioned, is really good. There's a ton of great film out right now. Be the Bridge was a really good book we did as a staff and walked through, especially those of you that may be more of a white complexion. It's a good understanding of how do you build the bridge between other people and yourself. And I think at the end of the day, Robert and Trey, you kind of both, I think even Gwen, you mentioned it. I think it's important to ask this question. What does your table look like? Who are you sharing meals with? Who are you having conversations with? I think it's important to remember that you'll only be as intelligent as the people sitting around you. And if you want to learn and to grow and to figure out, hey, what was your struggle? What was your life story? What were those things? I just believe that you're only as diverse as your table is. And you have to be able to sit with other people and ask the questions and be willing to sit and listen and hear their hurt and their pain and their joys and their sorrows all together. Because I believe that awareness without action is just information. Awareness that doesn't actually lead to a shift is just an information. And we're not looking for you to become a book. We're looking for people to become brothers and sisters together. And Trey, I think you nailed it on the head. At the end of the day, only way that can happen well is if we are united with Christ, because he is the one who brings us together. I wear this shirt on purpose. I love this shirt. It's one of my favorite shirts to wear because I do believe that equality is greater than division. And so I have a lot of these shirts because when I did back porch, this is what I wore. But I think as a society, we have to recognize that it is our opportunity and privilege to learn from one another. And that's exactly what this month reminds us of, that it's a privilege and opportunity to sit with other people who are not like us, who don't have a history that we do, and to learn and to sit at their table and to say, how can we learn, grow, and fight for one another, so that when we're standing before Christ one day, and we all will, regardless of your belief, when we all stand before Christ one day, he can say, well done, you fought well for my brothers and my sisters in Christ. So I just want to encourage us tonight to not just take awareness, but to take action on top of that. to not just be information driven, but to be inspiration, to be inspired, not inspiration, to be inspired. So I want us to fight for that. I want us to pray for that. I want us to see God move. And I think, as we've seen recently in Asbury, up in Wilmore, Kentucky, and it's now spreading kind of across other college campuses, God is on the move. And my prayer and my hope has been that God would be on the move for reconciliation, for racial reconciliation, for us to fight together as one and not against each other, because that gets us nowhere. So I will continue to fight. I will continue to stand alongside of y'all. Yeah, Gwen, did you have something? Or were you? Yeah.
No, I just agree.
Oh, you're just, yeah. No, you're good. I just want to make sure. Well, I love the three of y'all so much. Thank y'all for hopping on tonight. Thank you to those that tuned in as well. We love you guys and hope you have an incredible, incredible week. You have this opportunity now for the next, week and a half to go and to take this privilege that you have to go maybe stand with a coworker, take them to lunch, go stand with somebody that's in your street and take them to dinner or buy them coffee and just sit with them and have a conversation. At the end of the day, that's all we want this to be. How do you have good conversations to learn about other people so that you can be a better advocate for those who aren't like you? So love you guys. Have an incredible evening. We'll see you guys. Hopefully, if you're ever looking for a church home and you're here in Atlanta, you're welcome to join us here at Crossroads Church, where we hopefully will inspire you to take steps to become more like Jesus, because that's at the end of the day what's most important. So, all right, we love you guys. We'll see y'all sometime. I don't know. Normally, I just want to see you guys next week, but we won't do this next week. But we'll definitely see you guys next time. All right, see y'all.
Hi, Chris.